Thank you for sharing about your change in paths as you moved from Illinois back to Maryland, and then back to Illinois, trying to find your true calling in science. Now, as I understand, after your second time in Illinois, that is when you relocated or you located to Syracuse. What was that like?
Uh, Moving to Syracuse to the College of Forestry was an interesting experience. In some ways, it was a return to an area that I knew already, having gone to graduate school down the road in Ithaca at Cornell. But in other ways, it was not, because Syracuse, of course, is a very different kind of town than a college town like Ithaca is. And the School of Forestry is a very different kind of institution from either the University of Illinois or Cornell, partly because the resources are different and in some directions more limited and in some directions less so. Clearly, a much smaller public institution like the college, as the College of Forestry is, does not have the same scale of resources in terms of computational infrastructure or what have you that one might expect at an institution like Cornell or Illinois, or for that matter, our next door neighbor across the street, Syracuse University. So, given that, I found myself thinking, well, I'm probably not going to have a lot of computational firepower, not have, and programming would have to be done entirely by myself, and there is a limit to how much code one can write. And that's not really my cup of tea or cup of coffee either anyways. What I really do have a penchant for is doing paper and pencil theoretical calculation, and that, while it is limiting in many ways how far you can go with strictly paper and pencil math, it also is liberating in some senses, because if one can use the strength of ideas and paper and pencil calculation, well, the only resources you then need are the paper and the pencil. And that in some ways is a strength as well as a limitation, because if all one needs is ink, paper and pencil and an internet connection so one can read the most recent literature, it means the resources one needs are limited, and it gives one a lot more freedom and flexibility to pursue. And so several times in my time here, I have chosen a direction partly based on playing to the strength that I need limited resources. I do not need necessarily a large NIH or NSF or other three-letter agency grant to be able to do my science. And while that constrains what directions I can go in, it is also a source of strength in its own way. So that's something I have felt keenly during the time I have been here. Not sure if that answers the question.
Oh, no, it certainly does. And that constraint of having limited resources, to put your resource scarcity into perspective, we at Onondaga Community College look at ESF as a place that has many more resources than we do. So there's always someone standing right behind you looking at your resources, thinking they are fantastic. And we've had some students actually, or we're in the process of trying to get some students to experience those ESF resources to do some research. Now,
That
our
is fantastic.
students they're in a very different position usually than sort of your standard SUNY ESF student, either because they're not sure yet what field they're heading into, maybe they're not even sure college is for them, and you having had some setbacks, changes of plans, 90-degree turns. If you could sit down with one of our students, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, don't fret. You can succeed at this. You can succeed at this. I myself, on my mother's side of the family, am first generation college student. I can relate very well. It is not uncommon for students to change direction and to go into college unsure precisely what they want to do. If you are completely unsure what you want to do, completely, totally unsure, And I should give an example. What I mean by completely unsure, I mean you may choose to study chemistry, you may choose to study music or philosophy. If you are that unsure, you are probably better off going to a comprehensive university where all the disciplines are represented. But if you sort of know you want to study science, forestry, biology, something to do with environmental, but not sure precisely what, then ESF is probably a good place to go to. It's a very good place to go to. But the thing is, we are small, we do not represent all the fields of learning. So philosophy, music, languages, not really represented here. It's a, what is the acronym they use these days? STEM? I don't really like that acronym, but in STEM fields outside of physics, we don't have physics, we are well represented. And it is not uncommon for people to switch majors. So somebody may come in saying, I want to study biology or biotechnology. A year or two in, they switch to being, I think I would prefer doing chemistry, or no, I want to go into chemical engineering instead. That is not at all uncommon. People change their minds. I mean, it is natural, it is human nature to grow from experience and change your mind based on the experiences you have, to decide later that no, what I was thinking at first doesn't really fit. That is normal. It is very, very common. The worst that can happen is it might take you one more year to graduate, but because some requirements are different here or there or here. But that is very, very common. It is highly unusual for a person to know right when they are 18, 19, 20 years old that this is going to be my path in life. Every step is going to be determined. I know what I will do the next four. That's not how life is. Things change, and that is not uncommon.
Well, we all know how those best laid plans usually go. And for the majority of scientists and other professionals that I know, they did not have a straight path. Neither did I, and we know that you did not either. So our students are certainly in good company. Thank you very much for your time and your generosity and sharing your story with our students. Do you have any parting words of wisdom, encouragement for our students?
Try to think that every day things can be different, and be open to learning new things wherever they come from. Because even if you are not, let's say, majoring in a certain field, try to not be too narrow in your view. Because I'll give you an example. Let's say you are majoring in, just picking an example randomly. Let's say you are studying in engineering. Do not say that I will not go to a philosophy lecture because I may not learn anything there. Because listening to that lecture, it may start a train of thought in your mind that in a serendipitous way gives you some creative idea in your major field of study. I am not an atmospheric scientist, but what I am working on right now, which is the picture you see behind me in this background graphic, is a fractal aggregate. I got into studying some properties of fractal aggregates in the last year or two only, after I went to a seminar by an atmospheric scientist who was talking about the aerosols they are studying, they are collecting in experiments they do by aerosol sampling in aircraft. And I asked some questions at this seminar about what they could say about the porosity, the surface area, the characteristics of this object. And the speaker was very honest, saying that we really don't know. There is not a lot known about this. So I got interested in this, and now I have changed direction yet again. And I'm looking at the properties of networks comprised of fractal architecture objects. You can get ideas and inspiration in places you least expect. So one should not be only, I am studying, say, picking the example, engineering. I will close my mind to anything that is not engineering, and everything else is outside. No, inspiration and ideas come from everywhere. That is the one thing I am tempted to say.
I can only wholeheartedly agree that some of my directions in my career path have not come from my primary field of study. And I will not add much more to those final words of wisdom, except to thank you again for your generosity, for both your time and sharing your story. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you very much and goodbye as well. Farewell. Thank you.